Good day, Craig Zimmerman here on In the Zone, and I am into number 79 here with a St. Clair legend, Pete Fox. Welcome in.
How you doing?
I've chased you, Pete, for probably the last year, and you're a busy guy to track down.
Yeah,
I think the fact that you had surgery on the hip, I think that slowed you down enough to get you in the studio.
probably.
So, Pete, we talked about this being very casual. There's no secret questions. There's nothing that are going to stump you. But you're a local guy, and you were born and raised pretty close to downtown St. Clair. Tell me about where.
No, actually.
No?
You got that wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Frankenmuth. I grew up in Frankenmuth.
Oh.
Lived there since '66. I mean, I was originally born in suburban Detroit, but my dad got transferred to Saginaw Steering Gear. So I grew up in Frankenmuth, graduated from Frankenmuth High in 1980.
Oh.
The Eagles.
Now I do remember you telling me that years ago, but okay, got it. So you were born and raised up near where they make chicken dinners.
Chicken dinner. Yeah, I worked at Zender's in college.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in the kitchen or where?
No, what do you think? I was a bartender.
Okay. So you graduated. Tell us about your mother, your father's siblings.
Okay, my dad was Ed Fox. He worked for GM for 35 years. He was an accountant of some kind. My mom was a public school teacher. Surprise, surprise. I have 3 siblings, an older brother and an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay.
Both my younger brother and I are adopted. Unfortunately, my older brother passed back in February kind of unexpectedly. My sister's an occupational therapist, I believe.
Okay. So when did you decide, or where did you decide to go to college?
So I was looking around, and I ended up going to Hillsdale College for the least academic reasons of all. I had gone to the Michigan State, with some kind of scholarship weekend thing, and it was just not a good experience. So when I went to Hillsdale, I was met by this very cute co-ed and said, "You must be Pete." I said, "I must be going here."
Is that right?
Pretty much.
Is that your wife?
No,
Okay.
my wife went to Central.
Okay. So you go to college, and what did you major in?
History and political science, political economy.
Okay. Is that what you decided to teach?
No, I was gonna be a college professor for a while. I was in a PhD program at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill,
Okay.
with like the top modern German scholar in the United States, the guy who actually discovered Hitler's second unpublished book.
Okay.
He was a big shooter.
And so did you go through the whole program?
No, I went a semester, and
Okay.
Dr. Weinberg, a brilliant guy. He left U of M. He was the chair of the history department of U of M, and he left for a better spot at Chapel Hill. No, we were talking one day, and he's like, "This is my best Dr. Weinberg impression. You see, Peter, it's not whether you want to do history 80 hours a week now, but you want to do history 80 hours a week for the rest of your life."
No.
He was born in Germany. He was
Yep.
Jewish. He escaped,
Holocaust.
Hitler's Germany, and
Okay.
he was a man who read in microfilm, documented every single captured Nazi document for the U.S. government.
That's
Yeah.
probably somewhere at a university.
Yeah, all the originals.
Archives.
Yeah, they were at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and everything got sent back to the Federal Republic after, I don't know,
Right.
whatever it was. So that's when I decided I did not want to be a PhD in
Right.
history.
Okay. So when did you decide to become a school teacher?
I got out of college, out of Chapel Hill in Christmas '84. Kind of took a gap semester in '85, and sometime in the spring of '85, I was sitting at the Zender's bar having a coffee in the morning. Kind of skipped church. Shh, don't tell my parents. And I was talking to people. I'm like, the people I know who are truly happy with life are all teachers. Because my dad, he was an accountant, but he hung around with a bunch of teachers.
Okay.
And they were all golfing buddies and stuff. And they were the happiest people I knew. So I'm like,
Okay.
I'll give it a try.
And that was what year?
That was spring of '85.
And that's when it started.
Yeah, I went to Michigan State in the fall of '85, '86 to get my teaching certificate. And I got hired by East China in July of '86.
And what was your first teaching position in East China?
U.S. history mainly
Okay.
for Roger Parmentier.
Yes, I remember
Great guy.
Mr. Parmentier. Went to school with one of his sons. My brother went to school with another one of his sons. So yeah, know the Parmentier family well. So have you been your whole tenure at St. Clair High School?
Teaching, yes.
Okay, teaching. And has your teaching focus varied much?
Always social studies.
Okay.
history, government, AP history, current events, sociology 1 year. But I enjoy the kids, whether it's AP or ninth grade U.S. history, which is a big difference. I still find the kids pretty enjoyable.
Now, with all that vast background, do you even have to pick up the book?
Well, it was a new book, so yeah, we got new books. 2 years ago, we got new U.S. and world history. So 2 years ago, because I made up all my own like reading guides and quizzes and tests. So I had to read that book just so to see the wording that the kids
Okay.
would see.
Okay. And what year did you start coaching football at St. Clair?
Well, in '86, I coached football in Frankenmuth. In '85 with Ralph Munger, who
Okay.
went on to win the state championships at Rockford.
Okay. Yep, remember that name. Did you coach with Coach Ben?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Ben was Coach Vidakevich
Yeah.
was one of the first guys I met at St. Clair. Stayed the night at his place. He helped me find an apartment. Let's see, I believe I was the JV assistant at first for Ben.
Was he not a character?
He was
or
a
not?
great guy.
Oh.
Great guy. I do like some. He did the horse trading, but I'd ride around in the truck with him some. He's a good guy.
Oh yeah, he came down to Marine City when I was in high school, and he taught for a couple years, and we had him. And I always tell the story that I was probably a junior, maybe a senior, and he was teaching one of the shop classes.
Okay, yeah, he taught.
And we would sit around and talk for about half the hour about things. And 15, 20 minutes before the bell was, you guys better do something today. So go to work, do something. Nice guy, good
Great guy.
personality. He was also, I can remember he was an umpire for baseball when I
Really?
played baseball back
Wow,
in the
he
day.
wasn't in that when I was.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And he was quite the mind for football.
Oh yeah.
Had a lot of good years.
Yeah.
So give me the succession plan of, so when you started, you were at JV
Right.
for how many years roughly?
3, I believe.
Okay.
The 3 that was Ben was there, and then when Kenny took over, Kenny Thole, I was the head freshman coach for I think 3 years because that's how. Then when Steve Mott got there, I was head JV coach for 5 years,
Okay.
and I did a round at head varsity for 7, and then I moved down. I coached at Northern, Marine City, Memphis, back to St. Clair, and back out to Memphis.
So the local circle
Circuit,
here.
yeah.
Circuit there. So have you mostly coached offense?
Yes, but
Okay.
I coached a little D.
Right. And what would your specialty be?
Back in the day, triple option. Ben and I went out to Army back when Army was running the wishbone.
Okay. Okay.
Back in the day.
And so when you were most recently with a JV, what were you running there on offense?
Well, our base offense was 2-back zone, which is what Coach Bishop had us running. It worked very nice for us. We had some change-up, so we did a lot of things off the zone. We ran some inside zone with some zone read, some RPOs, ran a little bit of pistol.
Okay. Is there one offense from I'll call it, from a tactician standpoint that knows offense like you do? Is there one that you find is more geared towards, say, high school than others?
Hard to say. I've become enamored by zone, inside zone, outside zone in the last 7, 8 years. I used to be strictly a wishbone or wing T guy. We used to run a lot of wing T back in the day. But like when we were running zone read, the amount we got out of it with as little time as we put into it compared to the amount of time we used to put into triple
Sure.
with the inside veer, I thought it was like, wow, I like this.
That was my next question. I was going to bring up the veer offense.
Yeah.
So the veer offense is based upon the quarterback reading mostly?
Yes.
So you got to have a real headsy kid there playing
Yeah.
quarterback to read who's coming in what lane.
Correct.
Okay. I read an interesting book by, what was coach's name that was the air raid offense?
Oh, Hal Mummy.
Hal Mummy and his protege that just passed away a year and a half ago that was at Washington State and Mississippi State. Anyway, but in this book, the
Is that Mike Price?
No, it was Mike Leach.
Okay.
Mike Leach. In this book, though, it talked about how at the time when they were doing this air raid offense, it was sort of a new thing.
Right.
And they basically broke the offense into quadrants, and Mama was the guy that basically would say, and I'm paraphrasing, but like he was willing to bet that he could get a guy quicker to a space than the defense could adjust to it. And anywhere they went, they had huge huge records of offensive yardage and touchdowns, and where they went, they did that. So it's a very interesting book.
Okay.
Recommend reading, especially a guy like you.
Yeah, I have to look for it.
So you've been teaching how long now?
Next year will be year 39.
39 years. Tell me, what do you think's changed in the 39 years?
So, on one hand, you could say like technology, because when I started teaching, we literally wrote the names of the kids who were absent on a piece of paper and hung it outside the door.
And then they picked it up, yeah.
Yep. So technology, but, the one thing that sticks with me most is, people say, oh, the kids have changed. The kids haven't changed. We always have had good kids at St. Clair.
Mhm.
We still have good kids at St. Clair, and have every reason to believe in the future we'll continue to have good kids in St. Clair.
Yeah.
And, I'd say the same about Marine City or Northern
Yeah.
or Memphis. I mean, kids are kids. They're good. If you
And-
don't like kids, don't be a teacher.
Right. And I always laugh at it, from the competitive nature, like when, say, Marine City's playing at St. Clair or Marysville or wherever it might be. And it's funny because these kids they're at each other's throats and they're wanting to, beat up on the other team. But it's like, I say, that date in June when they cross that stage and get their diploma, then all of a sudden they're friends with them.
Yeah.
And like, you go somewhere and you see kids from Marine City and St. Clair and Marysville hanging out together, because that's the way it is, right?
Right.
You also have coached track for years.
Yep.
Um,
Since 92, I think.
So that's like 32 years, right?
That's a long time,
Yeah.
yeah.
So coaching track, now that's another thing, track and cross country, I think that if you take the average person, they think, oh, that's easy to coach. And I think, hold on a minute here, because I had an interesting talk with Tom Brenner about cross country.
Mhm.
Track is similar, but track is even more in depth because you got more in many
Events, yeah.
varied events. So in track, what are you coaching mostly?
I do sprinters and sprint relays.
Okay. So you've got 100, 200,
Yep, 400,
400.
4x1, 4x2,
Okay.
4x4.
So you've
So we
got
steal some distance guys. sometimes.
probably 15, 20 kids
Yeah.
maybe, something like that. And it's interesting too that, I guess maybe, oldsters like us back when we ran track, it might have been a little more simplistic where you just ran and you didn't. But everything's so competitive nowadays that before the meet starts, you already have probably data
Oh yeah.
on the competition.
I think athletic.net will tell you what it thinks the score will be. It will automatically compare the times and put that out.
So that, are you the head coach or
I'm
assistant?
the head varsity boys track coach.
Okay. So, and how many assistants do you have?
I had two because they split a position. We had a hard time finding coaches, so I had two coaches who were volunteer coaches. Jessica McDonald, Nate Tomlin.
Okay.
She does hurdles and she's excellent. And then last year, Lindsay Jones, who was a three-time All-American pole vaulter at Grand Valley. She was state qualifier at St. Clair back the first year they had girls pole vault. She's my pole vault coach, and she's done a phenomenal job trying to, because there used to be a lot of good pole vaulters in the area, and it's kind of dropped off.
Okay.
Coach Dickinson moved to, well, he's coaching track in Central Florida or South Florida, one of the
Okay.
two. But anyways, so Lindsay's doing her job trying to put together a group, not just at our school, but Marysville, Northern, Marine City. They actually have a United States Track and Field Club where you can join if you want to pole vault all summer long.
Okay.
So,
So,
great coach.
so you've been doing this for a lot of years, and you do the, like you said, the relays and the shorter races. Who's doing the long ones?
Well, the long distance coach traditionally is a cross country coach. It was
Okay.
Tommy up till he retired from track.
Okay.
It's Paul Schneider. He's the girls' head coach,
Okay.
and the boys and girls, I think, cross country coach does an excellent job.
Okay. And were you in the black white most recently?
We have been in gold since I got back.
Okay.
I coached track for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years with Joe Forgetto down at Marine City. I mean, at one time when I was at St. Clair, the first round, we got as high as the white, but we only were there for like a year,
Okay.
2 years.
Okay.
Cycle.
Has much changed in the way of, say, athletics, whether it be football or track, since the decline in enrollment at all? Does that affect you much?
Our numbers, our numbers for track are still good. We had about 50 boys on the team.
Sure.
But there was a time, again, in my first round of coaching track, when we were a bigger school and we didn't have lacrosse, that we literally had 100 kids on the boys' team.
Sure.
It was kind of insane, but
Yeah.
Micah Volz was my assistant. He did a great job, so we did our best to handle it. So our number a little bit declined, but
Yeah. 50's a good number to handle, though, too.
yeah.
You get to be 75 or 100, you really need more bodies. You know.
Yeah, the more the merrier. Give them a
Okay.
good experience.
And so being I asked you just before we, turned the cameras on, you must be near the top of the chart for years in. So now with the retirement, you're number one in the district as far as longevity.
Yep. Last year I was tied with Mark Everhard, who retired. We both came in '86. Now I'm number one on the
Okay.
seniority list, for what it's worth.
Okay. We got to skip back and talk about the family.
Okay.
If we do this interview and your wife catches that she doesn't get mentioned, she's going to make a call to me or somebody, or Pete's going to get in trouble.
Yes.
Tell us.
Okay, so I've been married, for 34 years,
Mm-hmm.
to my wonderful wife, Lisa. She was a St. Clair graduate, Lisa Likens,
Yep.
maiden name. We have 3 children. The oldest, Emily Fox, is a teacher at Dakota. The youngest, Elizabeth Fox, is a teacher at Croslex. She teaches history and coaches track.
Oh, jeez.
And the middle kid, he's like, you need to get a more honorable profession. He's a lawyer.
Where at?
He's a lawyer for the MEA.
Okay. Education Association lawyer.
Correct.
So he didn't go too far then.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was in private practice for a while.
Okay. Now, do you sit around at family events and things, talk about teaching
A little bit.
a little bit?
Yeah.
Does it vary much difference from
My wife's the building sub at St. Clair too.
Okay. Does the conversation vary much, say, coming from a school like Dakota, being so big?
Not
Not too
really.
much? Okay. Because St. Clair, I'm guessing, haven't looked at the numbers.
About 800, just under.
Okay. And they were as big as 1,000 in their,
Yeah, 1,035, 1,040 maybe,
Yeah. Okay.
back at its peak, something like that.
Okay. Now, teaching track and being a coach for this many years, it's got to be almost like a fraternity when you're going to events, when you're seeing Joe
yeah.
Forgetto, when you're seeing your northern coaches,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah, okay, yeah. The only thing is, like, the northern guys are basically on their next generation of coaches. All the coaches that were in when I originally started, like the Dickinson brothers, Coach Kazera, who I coached football with, they're all retired, and now, so it's Paul Nevada is, I think is he the boys or girls head coach, and then Coach Neal is the other head coach, and then Zach Tanton, who was a St. Clair High
Yep.
kid. But yeah, it's like a reunion. It's fun.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing that I notice is that when I go to kids' events, whether it be high school baseball, girls softball, football, whatever it might be, the thing that I like to invite people to think about when they're at these events is, number one, they're kids. Number two, the coaches are there for the kids. If you figured out what a coach makes for a season, and because some people say, oh, they get paid for it. Well, yeah, they get paid for it, and you divide out the hours, it's probably about $3.25 an hour, right? And the other thing is that when a coach decides to play a specific kid or kids, they're not picking on kids. They're basically trying to get all the kids in and try to win a game and do the best they can with the kids they've got.
With track, that's the beauty of track, is every kid can do 4 events.
Yeah.
And in terms of who's running the varsity heat or not the varsity heat, the stopwatch doesn't lie.
Right.
Or the tape measure, so
Yeah.
that's pretty easy with track. A little less so with like football, but I would never want to coach a cut sport.
Right.
I just couldn't. I coached swim in the winter, that's no cut. Football is always no cut.
Right. Basketball a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that I think is sort of crazy, and I'm not going to say it's worse today than it was 20 or 30 years ago, because it's always been an issue, but when a referee or an umpire makes a call and people go ballistic, and I always say, why bother saying anything? Because number one, I don't think they're ever going to change their viewpoint on what their call was, and number two, I don't think they came there to single you out, right?
Agreed.
I mean, life goes on, whether it be a fault in something, or
I think it's counterproductive to scream and yell at the refs that they're human too. Just like give them a break, and maybe they'll give you a break back.
Right. And especially in today's world where it's tough to get officials.
Oh yeah, brutal.
You know, you look at, you know, the scenario. I always think the worst one to officiate is basketball because everybody's so close.
Yeah.
And then you've got 2 and possibly 3 people watching 10 kids go in different directions. You're not going to get them all.
Yeah.
You're just not. So, you know, those are a couple of things that I think need to be said. I've told a few of the administrators that I've talked to, I said, if you'd like to have a course that every parent has to go through, I'd like to teach it, talking about officiating, talking about don't question the coaches, let the coaches be coaches and coach the kids. So that's just my soapbox, I guess. I think we got it all, Pete.
All right.
You got the kids, you got the sibling, you got the wife. I learned something in every interview, and you know, I should have wrote it down, but I remember you telling me you went to Frankenmuth years ago when we talked. So you're going to go this fall, and you're going to coach again in Memphis.
Correct. 8-man. That should be interesting.
Okay.
That should be really interesting.
When you were there before, it wasn't 8-man, or was it?
They just dropped to 8-man this year.
Okay. So what are you going to coach?
I'm the head JV coach, offense. But there's just myself and a kid who played for me, Brad Strunk. He owns an insurance agency in Marysville somewhere.
Okay.
Anyways, Brad and I are doing the JV, and he's going to be the defense coordinator, and I'll be his assistant on defense. And
Okay.
he's the O-line coach, and I get the backs and receivers. It should be fun.
So are you scheming this just in your head and based upon all the knowledge about football, or are you going to a book that says 8-man football?
Well, our offensive coordinator, his name's Tim Zimmer. I think he's a Cross-Lex graduate. I believe he was the head coach at Merritt Academy out of New Haven. So he's got, and they're 8-man. So he has a number of years, 4 or 5 years doing 8-man. Then the defensive coordinator, CJ, was the head coach at Peck last year. That was 8-man.
Okay.
So, and Dan Pilgrim, he's the head coach. So he's put together a staff of guys who are familiar with 8-man. So to a certain extent, you know, well, more than an extent, I'm following the offensive playbook that Tim put together.
Yeah.
But I put my 2 cents in.
Sure.
Timmy's just like, if you got an idea, it's fine, just run it by me first.
And then let's no.
So yeah, been very, very nice.
You know, for our viewers, a lot of people I don't think put any thought as to why 8-man football. And I would say the answer to why 8-man football is just a personnel issue in smaller schools mostly, right?
Correct, because like we encountered this when we were at Memphis the last time. It's like all of a sudden to field a team, you're putting a freshman or a sophomore out there,
Right.
maybe even on the O-line against a team that's got seniors, and that's a huge difference. Even if the kid doesn't get hurt, he's not going to have a good experience.
Right.
And then it becomes like a downward cycle, like the numbers drop because kids aren't having fun. So, and I think, you know, somewhere else out west they play 6-man. We were discussing.
Oh, really?
I think, like, I don't know, the Dakotas. I don't play somewhere they play
That's
5-man.
that's almost like a flag pickup game.
Yeah. So, but 8-man, it's like, from what my understanding, because we just got out of a camp, but my understanding is it's like the 2 tackles are gone on offense. So, like one of our base formations has a twins over here, split receiver over here, and quarterback and a back in the backfield with 3 down linemen.
Okay.
So that would be our equivalent to like the spread in 8-man. Defenses are interesting.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, it's like most people will go with like a 4. If they want to have a secondary, they're going with like a 4-3, and that would hold on. No, that doesn't add up.
Right.
That doesn't add up. Like a 2-3.
Okay.
And then they have 3 guys left for the secondary if they want a secondary. And they might play those outside linebackers up on the line, so it doesn't look more like a 4-1. I don't know. It should be interesting.
Should be interesting, yeah.
Looking forward to the challenge.
Who would you consider your mentor in football? Because you've got a vast.
Oh,
resume.
all sorts of people. When I was going back to get my teaching certificate, Ralph Munger, who was the head coach at Frankenmuth, went on to win a couple state championships at Rockford. He's like, well, if you're going to teach, you got to coach.
There you go.
So I became a volunteer assistant that year. My brother was already working with him. Probably the greatest influence on me has been my brother. He's coach at Notre Dame Prep. He's been a regional coach of the year a bunch of times.
Is he older or younger than you?
3 years younger.
Okay.
Top-rated speaker for Glazer Clinics, like 10 years in a row.
Okay.
But so Pat, Coach Vidakevich,
Yep.
Coach Glodich, Coach Karskelly. I mean, like the number one thing that I got from Scar is like, it ain't what I know, it's what they can learn. I had a tendency to have too much stuff in before, and I'm like, that's a really good.
Yeah.
And Ron was always like, I don't know. And I'd be, 2 hours, not much passed.
Right.
Because my first year as a varsity coach, one night we practiced from 2:30 to it's like 6:45 when we got off the field. And I had friends like, are you sure this is counterproductive? Being stubborn and stupid.
Right. Well, you live and you learn, and you
Yeah.
do things, and you learn by doing things, right?
So definitely Scar and Coach Klodich, and the one thing various things I took with me from Marine City, but always the Starburst.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what's interesting too is you look at the amount of good coaches that come from the area,
Yeah.
and not just football, but a lot of different sports. I mean, we could name a dozen of them easily.
Can I get a plug-in for my track mentor?
Yeah,
Fred Shaw.
Fred Shaw.
Fred
Been
Shaw,
around.
great track coach.
Yes.
The one thing he told me, the number one thing, my first year, he's like, you coach it like football, you won't have a team left in May. Then
Yeah.
from a technician point, Coach Fouché.
Yeah. But what I find interesting too is that most of the coaches, and I remember talking to Coach Tony Scarcelli years ago, talking about different things, and maybe St. Clair when you were there. He used to say, I hate playing Pete. Why do you hate playing Pete? Because he knows Pete's going to have a good game plan put together.
The one year we threw for over 450 yards. The quarterback was number 7 on all-time passing in the state history at that time. It was Sammy Schweihoffer.
Yeah.
And we still lost. And Marine City's first score was on the Starburst.
Yeah.
I can laugh now.
Right. 20 years later,
Yeah.
not so bad. Pete, great having you in here.
Thank you very much.
Good luck this fall with your 39th year
Yep.
of teaching. And
fun.
at Memphis High School, we'll look in we won't say in the Times Herald anymore. We'll look somewhere on Twitter to see what Memphis is doing in 8-man football.
Okay, thank you.
And you're going to get an iPhone someday, right?
No. I am, it's not a phone, it's a computer that functions as a phone. And I'm really proud of my kids. My kids are not addicted to their phones, but I don't want to run the risk. Well, I don't think I would, but when you're with a bunch of people
Yeah.
and they're all just doing this
Yeah, I
and they're
agree.
not talking and they're
Yeah.
not interacting. It's
Yeah.
like I do lunch duty, and when the kids are screwing around and misbehaving, maybe throwing a little bit of food, I don't know, not being necessarily perfect. I'm like, hey, at least they're interacting.
They're talking to each other,
Yeah.
right? Okay. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
Take care.
Thanks.
586-707-5811 if you know anybody else who wants to be interviewed. Thank you to Pete Fox for coming in, and we'll be back next week.